This presentation on rubrics and other grading forms was first presented at the Seeds of Pedagogy, April 9, 2021. Let's start the presentation by taking a look at what we traditionally think of as a grading rubric. Traditionally, we think of grading rubrics as being set up in tables such as this one. This grading rubric is a 6 traits writing rubric that is commonly used in the secondary schools. You'll notice across the column tops, it lists the different levels of writing ability. 6 being the strongest as exemplary, moving down to 5 strong, 4 proficient, 3 developing, 2 emerging, and 1 beginning. At the beginning of each row, the characteristics of the written piece are listed that would be examined: ideas and content, organization, voice, word choice, sentence fluency, and conventions. Each of the cells then describes those characteristics at the different level of writing. For example, with ideas and content, the beginning writer lacks a central idea and development is minimal or non-existent. At the emerging level, the purpose and main idea may be unclear and cluttered by irrelevant detail. At the developing level, the main idea may be cloudy because supporting detail is too general or even off topic. At 4, there is an evident main idea with some support which may be general or limited. At level 5, there's a clear, focused, interesting idea with appropriate detail. And at the level 6, there is exceptionally clear, focused, engaging main idea that is supported with relevant, strong supporting details. This type of rubric is set up so it would follow a student from one grade to a next, and it would trace their development as a writer. A student who was in, say, 5th, 6th, or 7th grade would probably be earning a 1 or a 2. 8th, 9th, 10th grade would earn a 3 or a 4, and then by 11th or 12th grade would be earning 5s or 6s. There are times, though, where we set up a rubric, this time as a list, that could be used all semester long. This time the rubric is for a discussion post. You'll notice this list describes what a 5-point, 3-point, and 1-point discussion post response is. As it is set up, each of the lists has 4 specific qualities, and they are parallel along the way. For example, a 5-point response is complete, a 3-point response is mostly complete, a 1-point response incomplete. A 5-point response is accurate, specific, and well thought out. A 3-point response is accurate, but general and vague. A 1-point response has inaccuracies and seems incomplete. When it's created in this way so that there are parallels from one level to the next, the description becomes very clear. The 4-point and the 2-point discussion response are not given. It's assuming that a 4-point would share characteristics of both a 5 and a 3. As we take a look at other rubrics, this one here is for an institutional learning objective, demonstrating strong personal management skills. This rubric is set up as a yes or a no. Any student who is able to demonstrate all the rubric bullets on the left-hand side is ought to have demonstrated the strong personal management skills. They attend class regularly, are on time for class, complete assignments. The assignments are completed and turned in on time, and there's few, if any, missing assignments. Any student who meets any of the bullets on the right-hand side, several absences, frequent tardies, incomplete, late, or missing assignments, would be a no to meeting these objective of strong personal management skills. There are times that a yes or no needs to be more specific than simply a yes or no. So that last table is reformatted as a yes or no checklist. Each of the bullets becomes a yes or a no. Attends class regularly. If it's a yes, the yes is circled. If it's a no, the number of days absent can be recorded. The same thing for all of the other bullets. The student is on time for class, yes, or the student is on time for class, no, and this is the number of days tardy. You'll notice at the end of the list, exemplary is described as having yes in all 5 categories. Satisfactory having yes in 4 categories, and all counts are under 2. Average having yes in 3 categories, and all counts are under 5. Below average, a no in 3 or more categories, and unsatisfactory, a no in 4 or more categories. Those descriptors at the bottom help take a yes or no chart and more fully describe a student's development. Sometimes, as we take a look at creating rubrics, we might go for a more traditional descriptor of simply the A column, like this one here for a final paper. Instead of creating all the different categories, we can use the A column and make a list of an A paper, knowing that if all the requirements are met and the work is ready to use and show to an audience, then each of the categories that are described below are 4. If the paper is a 3, some requirements are met, the work is usable, but there are improvements that could happen. A 2, the requirements are mostly met, and the work has potential, but is going to need revision and modification. A 1, some of the requirements are met, but revision and modification are required and will probably take longer. And a 0, the requirements are not met. The categories for this are unity and coherence, support and style, and grammar and sentence structure. As someone was grading a paper and they were looking at unity, they would look for a main topic that's explicitly stated in the title, topic sentences that are the focus of each paragraph. Each sentence of the body relates to the topic sentence of the paragraph. The introduction and conclusion connect the ideas of the body paragraph and lead the reader into and out of the body paragraphs, and irrelevant detail has been edited out. Any of those goals that have not been met could be highlighted so the student knows what areas to improve on. If an instructor didn't want to use the 4-point scale for each of the categories below, the instructor could simply count up the number of bullets. There's 25 of them. Count the number of bullets that were met and divide that by 25 and come up with a percentage for the paper in that way. There are times when we create descriptors of A papers that we don't want to throw off the grade by adding a whole bunch of fluffy details that we would want the students to put in there anyway, but we know if we don't list there, some students may not add. So this time, you'll notice that there is a square table added to the top of this descriptor that gives minimum requirements, such as the paper needs to be typed in Times New Roman 12, double spaced, the thesis highlighted in green, and the topic highlighted in yellow. If any of those requirements are not met when the student turns in the paper, then that paper becomes a redo and is sent back to the student. This allows you to put in some minimum requirements without throwing off the weight of the grade by putting little tiny details in that you would hope students would do automatically. As we take a look at the next rubric, it is set up in a table, and this one is set up for effective written communication. You'll notice it describes 3 different levels of a writer: the mastery level, intermediate level, and the beginning level. And it takes a look at unity, support, coherence, and sentence skills. This is written in such a way that it's general enough that it could be used for any assignment in, say, English 110. So it wouldn't matter whether the paper is narrative, descriptive, compare, or contrast. It should have these type of characteristics. Now, added to this is a second rubric. The second rubric is for research. This allows the paper to be examined for full documentation and informal use of MLA or APA if that is required, informal documentation if simply the attribution statements and quotations are needed, or unintentional plagiarism where borrowed material is not identified as different from the author's own. This is one of the cases where two rubrics can actually be joined together to take a look at one single assignment. The other thing to take a look at with rubrics is the idea that rubrics can actually grow as class content is taught. So for example, this rubric set comes from English 098, which is the paragraph to essay writing course. And you'll notice the first rubric is fairly small. It deals with format, detail, and grammar and usage. It is possible that the instructor would mark beyond these factors, but these factors listed here are the only ones that have been taught, and they're the only ones that are graded on the first paper. Once we move to the second paper, you'll notice that the central point is added, as well as the order of ideas within that paper, and capitalization and end punctuation have been taught. Now that those are taught, they have been graded. They will be graded. As we continue to move through to the third paper, you'll notice word choice, verb forms, sentence fragments, apostrophes, and quotation marks have been added. And there's a whole new category where students are asked to highlight simple sentences with linking and action verbs. The next paper adds to the central point in details and order because we are now growing into a paper that has multiple paragraphs with an introduction and conclusion. And you'll notice that we add more grammar, the tense shifts, subject and verb agreement, pronoun antecedent agreement, and the elimination of run-ons and comma places. And we're also asking students to highlight two more sentence types, the sentence with coordinating conjunction and the sentence with semicolon. For the next paper, you'll notice more grammar and more sentences have been added. So by the time we get to the final paper in the class, you'll notice that this scoring sheet includes the format, central idea and details, the order, grammar, and sentence examples that would be considered quality for a 110 paper. This is also a scoring sheet that could be used at the beginning of a 110 class. This series of scoring rubrics shows how the scoring rubric can grow and change as different class content is added. I hope you have some new ideas about scoring rubrics, the format of them, and how you can use those for instruction and to show growth of your students' learning over the course of the semester.